Welcome to the USF IACUC New Member Orientation. This presentation provides an overview of your roles and responsibilities as a committee member or alternate. What is an IACUC? The IACUC stands for the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. The IACUC is a committee mandated by the AWA and the PHS policies to ensure the humane care and use of vertebrate animals in research, teaching, and testing, and to ensure compliance with guidelines and regulations. The IACUC has oversight of the institution's animal care and use program, including its procedures and facilities. The IACUC is a committee mandated by the AWA and the PHS policies to ensure the humane care and use of vertebrate animals in research, teaching, and testing, and to ensure compliance with guidelines and regulations. The IACUC has oversight of the institution's animal care and use program, including its procedures and facilities. The institutional official at USF is Dr. Prasant Mohapatra, Vice President for Research and Innovation. The IACUC is chaired by Dr. J. Dean, with Dr. Sherry Pilon Thomas serving as Vice Chair. The committee is composed of 9 voting members, including the chair, and requires a quorum of 5 members to conduct official business. The voting membership includes 1 veterinarian with program oversight responsibilities and 7 scientist members representing a range of colleges, departments, and affiliated institutions across USF. The committee also includes 1 non-scientist member who serves as an unaffiliated representative and is not otherwise affiliated with USF. This role is critical for ensuring community perspective and public accountability. In addition, the committee includes 1 member with specific expertise in field and wildlife studies to support the review of those protocols. To ensure continuity of review and meeting coverage, the IACUC maintains a pool of 10 alternate members, 9 scientists and 1 veterinarian, who may serve when regular members are unavailable to attend meetings or review protocols and modifications. Animal care and use programs are guided by multiple regulatory, professional, and institutional sources to ensure best practices in animal care and welfare protection. Together, these frameworks establish the standards for evaluating protocols, facilities, and program oversight. Key regulatory foundations include the Animal Welfare Act and its implementing regulations, as well as USDA animal care policies. For institutions receiving public health service funding, the Public Health Service Policy on the Humane Care and Use of Laboratory Animals provides additional requirements and oversight expectations. Professional guidance is drawn from the Guide for the Care and Use of Laboratory Animals and the report of the AVMA panel on euthanasia, which establish widely accepted standards for animal housing, veterinary care, procedural practices, and humane endpoints. At the institutional level, USF principles and procedures further define how these external requirements are implemented locally. Finally, IAALAC international accreditation standards integrate and exceed many of these requirements, providing an external benchmark for excellence in animal care and use. Together, these sources form the foundation of a comprehensive, ethical, and compliant animal care and use program. IAALAC stands for the Association for Assessment and Accreditation of Laboratory Animal Care. Fortunately, since 2016, they just go by IAALAC International. IAALAC International is a private, nonprofit organization founded in 1965 that promotes the humane treatment of animals used in science through a voluntary accreditation program. Accreditation by IAALAC signifies that an institution's animal care and use program meets or exceeds accepted standards for animal welfare. USF has maintained IAALAC accreditation since 1972, reflecting a long-standing institutional commitment to high-quality animal care and responsible research practices. As part of the accreditation process, IAALAC conducts formal site visits every 3 years to evaluate animal care and use programs and ensure continued compliance with best practices. The USF IACUC meets monthly, usually on the 4th Friday of each month at noon, except for the months of November and December, when the meeting is held earlier in the month to accommodate holidays. A quorum of 5 members is required to convene the USF IACUC meeting. Submissions of IACUC applications are due 7 days prior to the IACUC meeting. This allows members sufficient time to review protocols prior to the meeting. At the meeting, these protocols will be brought for review, followed by other business items to be addressed. The core responsibilities of the IACUC and how they support the humane care and use of animals in research include: twice a year, the committee conducts a comprehensive review of the entire animal care and use program. This includes inspecting all animal facilities, even satellite locations, to ensure they meet standards for proper housing, husbandry, and overall welfare. After each review, the committee prepares a written report and submits it to the institutional official. Another key responsibility is addressing any animal welfare concerns. The committee reviews and investigates reports from staff, researchers, or anyone who raises a concern about how animals are being cared for. This process helps maintain transparency and ensures that issues are handled promptly and without retaliation. The IACUC also provides ongoing guidance to the institutional official. This includes recommendations related to the animal program, facility conditions, and the training and qualifications of personnel who work with animals. A major part of the committee's work is reviewing proposed animal research activities. Before any project involving animals can begin, the IACUC evaluates the protocol to ensure it meets ethical and regulatory standards. The committee also reviews significant changes to ongoing studies to make sure those changes remain compliant. Finally, the IACUC has the authority to suspend an activity if it determines that animals are being used in a way that is not consistent with an approved protocol or regulatory requirements. When this happens, the committee reports the suspension and works with the institution to address the issue. Together, these responsibilities ensure that animal research is conducted responsibly, ethically, and in full compliance with federal regulations. IACUC members are expected to attend all convened meetings and remain until business is completed. If you are unable to attend, notify the IACUC Administrative Office as soon as possible so an alternate can be assigned to maintain quorum, which is required for official committee actions. Members should actively participate in discussions, provide thoughtful input, and vote based on their professional judgment. It is also important to stay current with applicable regulations and policies, participate in semi-annual inspections, and contribute to subcommittees when needed. All information discussed during IACUC meetings is confidential and may involve proprietary research. Members must not share this information outside the committee and are required to sign a confidentiality agreement upon joining. Finally, all members must disclose any potential conflicts of interest, whether financial or non-financial. Conflict of interest forms must be completed upon joining the committee and updated annually. Per PHS policy and AWARS, IACUC members must not participate in the review or approval of any activity in which they have a conflict of interest, such as being directly involved in the research. Members may only provide information if requested by the committee. When a conflict exists, the member must recuse themselves from the discussion and voting. Recused members cannot be counted toward quorum while the protocol is under review. This section provides general guidance for reviewing IACUC protocols, focus on animal welfare, scientific justification, and compliance, and provide clear feedback when needed. Under Public Health Service requirements, institutions with an approved animal welfare assurance must verify that all animal care and use activities described in a grant or proposal are covered by IACUC approval. At USF, the IACUC conducts a congruency review to confirm that the animal research described in the protocol aligns with the funded activities. This includes reviewing the overall research objectives, the species involved, and the approximate number of animals used. For studies funded by PHS agencies, the IACUC compares the protocol and grant to ensure there are no discrepancies that would affect animal welfare oversight or regulatory compliance. USF follows a one protocol, one grant policy. While a single grant may be associated with more than one IACUC-approved protocol, a single protocol cannot be used to represent animal activities across multiple grants. This approach helps maintain clear oversight, accurate reporting, and compliance with federal requirements. The IACUC oversees the specific use of animals in research, teaching, and testing conducted by USF faculty and staff, supported by USF funds, or performed by USF-affiliated investigators. As part of this responsibility, the IACUC reviews and approves all animal use protocols before any work may begin. There are two approved methods of protocol review: full committee review and designated member review. Full committee review involves review by a convened quorum of IACUC members and requires a formal vote. Research and teaching applications must be reviewed through full committee review and may result in approval, a requirement for modifications to secure approval, or withholding of approval. Designated member review may only occur after all IACUC members have been given the opportunity to request full committee review. If any member requests full committee review, the protocol is brought to the next convened meeting. If not, the IACUC chair appoints one or more qualified members to conduct the review. Designated member review may result in approval, required modifications to secure approval, or referral to the full committee, but it cannot result in withholding of approval. Protocol types commonly eligible for designated member review include third-year renewals of research and teaching studies, wildlife studies, mouse or rat breeding. Only protocols Category A pain protocols, tissue use only protocols, and anti-serum production protocols. Following IACUC review, protocols may receive one of several determinations. If a protocol is approved as submitted, the IACUC system automatically notifies the principal investigator, and the approval is valid for 3 years, contingent upon successful annual renewals. Protocols may also be designated as requires modifications to secure approval through either designated member review or full committee review. Under designated member review, the IACUC has identified questions or minor clarifications that must be addressed before approval can be granted. Under full committee review, this determination reflects more significant concerns that require discussion by the convened committee before proceeding. If a protocol is disapproved or tabled, the investigator must submit a new protocol for review. In these cases, the IACUC will clearly identify animal welfare concerns and provide written guidance outlining what must be addressed in a new submission. Common reasons for disapproval include unclear justification for animal use, an insufficient explanation of how the potential benefits of the research outweigh the risks to the animals, major animal welfare concerns, or the need for extensive revisions, particularly those impacting animal care, pain, distress, or overall welfare. This flowchart outlines the IACUC review process from submission through final determination. It shows how protocols may move through designated member review or full committee review, and the possible outcomes, including approval, required modifications, or deferral. Use this as a guide to understand how your review fits into the overall process. Once an animal protocol is approved, there are 3 mechanisms for making changes. The first is submitting an amendment to an approved protocol. Amendments are used to make changes to personnel, funding sources, animal strains, or anesthesia and analgesia. These are typically reviewed through designated member review and assigned to one IACUC member for determination. The second option is a procedural change to an animal protocol. This pathway is used for minor procedural updates, requests for additional animals, or a change in principal investigator. When funding changes to a federal source, investigators must also submit the grant face page, specific aims, and the animal section. Procedural changes are reviewed via designated member review, with all committee members given a brief review period before the submission is assigned to a designated reviewer. The third pathway is veterinary verification and consultation. This is an expedited review process conducted by veterinary staff for select modifications that fall within established VVC guidelines. These changes are identified and initiated by the veterinary team, enabling timely implementation while maintaining appropriate animal welfare oversight. As part of its oversight responsibilities, the IACUC ensures that animal living conditions are appropriate for the species and meet all applicable regulatory and professional standards, with a strong emphasis on the principles of replacement, reduction, and refinement. Investigators are expected to consider alternatives to animal use whenever possible, and the committee evaluates whether non-animal or less sentient models could replace animal use. The IACUC also reviews housing and husbandry practices, including any non-standard conditions, to ensure they are scientifically justified and reflect refinement of animal care. Animals must be housed in approved facilities and only for the duration necessary to meet scientific objectives, supporting a reduction in animal numbers. Adequate veterinary medical care must be available and provided by a qualified veterinarian, and the IACUC evaluates the training and experience of all personnel to ensure procedures are performed competently and humanely. Animals may not be used in more than one major survival surgical procedure unless there is clear scientific justification, consistent with refinement principles. Finally, the committee confirms that euthanasia methods align with accepted standards and minimize pain and distress, further reinforcing refinement and animal welfare. When reviewing animal numbers, the IACUC evaluates whether the proposed number of animals is sufficient to achieve statistically valid and scientifically meaningful results. In most cases, investigators are expected to provide a statistical power analysis with sufficient detail to demonstrate how the data will be analyzed and how the proposed sample size was determined. For studies involving tissue derivation, investigators must clearly explain why a specific quantity of material is required and how the number of animals requested is appropriate to obtain that amount. In some situations, citing prior research may be acceptable to support sample size justification, provided the previous studies are sufficiently similar in scientific rationale and methodology to justify the use of comparable animal numbers. During protocol review, the IACUC evaluates whether the proposed procedures are clearly and thoroughly described. Investigators must provide a concise, step-by-step description of all procedures involving animals so that the committee can fully assess their impact. Protocols must also describe how discomfort, distress, and pain will be avoided or minimized. Pain-relieving measures are expected to be incorporated into any procedure that may cause pain or distress, unless a strong scientific justification is provided for their omission. The IACUC assesses the overall impact of the proposed procedures on the animal's well-being and requires clearly defined criteria for timely intervention. This includes the process for removing animals from a study or performing euthanasia if adverse or unanticipated outcomes occur. Finally, protocols must clearly state that animals will be humanely euthanized if pain or distress cannot be adequately relieved. USF uses the USDA animal pain and distress categories to classify procedures based on the level of pain or distress experienced by the animals and whether it is alleviated. The two categories that apply to most animal research activities are USDA categories C and D. USDA Category C includes procedures that involve no or only momentary pain or distress and do not require the use of anesthesia or analgesia. Examples include brief needle sticks for blood collection or the administration of euthanasia, where a similar procedure in humans would not require anesthesia. USDA Category D includes procedures that may cause pain or distress, but where that pain is appropriately alleviated through the use of anesthetic, analgesic, or tranquilizing drugs. Examples include surgical procedures with post-operative pain managed through analgesia, the use of anesthesia for restraint, or procedures that would require topical or systemic anesthesia if performed in humans. Correct categorization is important for regulatory reporting and ensures that appropriate pain management strategies are incorporated into the protocol. When reviewing surgical procedures, the IACUC requires that protocols clearly describe the use of appropriate sedation, analgesia, and anesthesia before surgery, during the procedure, and throughout the postoperative period. This ensures that pain and distress are adequately managed throughout the procedure. Surgical methods must be described in sufficient detail to allow the committee to fully understand what will be performed, including any multiple or staged operative procedures. Protocols must also include a clear plan for post-procedural care and observation, including post-treatment or post-surgical assessments to monitor animal recovery and identify complications. Finally, the IACUC confirms that all surgical procedures will be conducted using aseptic technique, performed in approved facilities, and supported by appropriate pre- and post-operative care to protect animal welfare and ensure compliance with institutional and regulatory standards. In addition to reviewing study design and procedures, the IACUC evaluates several broader animal welfare and compliance factors. This includes confirming that animal living conditions are appropriate for the species and meet all applicable PHS and USDA standards. Any non-standard housing or husbandry practices must be clearly described and scientifically justified. Animals must be housed in approved facilities and only for the time period authorized in the protocol. The IACUC also ensures that adequate veterinary medical care is available and provided as needed by a qualified veterinarian. When animals are housed in comparative medicine managed facilities, this requirement is generally met through established veterinary oversight. The committee also verifies that all personnel listed on the protocol are adequately trained and experienced to perform the proposed procedures. While IACUC administrative pre-screenings support this process, reviewers assess whether personnel qualifications and training are appropriate for the specific activities described. Additionally, the IACUC confirms that animals are not subjected to more than one major survival surgical procedure unless there is clear scientific justification and explicit approval. Finally, all proposed methods of euthanasia are reviewed to ensure they are consistent with USF policy and current AVMA guidelines. As part of protocol review, the IACUC verifies that all personnel involved in animal research are appropriately trained and qualified to perform the procedures described. Ensuring adequate training is a core component of animal welfare oversight, and IACUC members are responsible for reviewing personnel qualifications during protocol evaluation. At USF, certification for new research personnel who work with animals includes documentation of prior animal experience through ACV or resume, completion of a health and risk assessment to support employee safety, orientation to the animal facility, and required AALAS online training. Personnel must also complete biomethodology training and applicable wet lab training to demonstrate procedural competency. Investigators have an annual opportunity to update their researcher profiles, though this update is optional. In addition, there is a 6-year recertification requirement that includes completing a new health and risk assessment. While this recertification is considered a soft requirement, it supports continued compliance, personnel safety, and high standards of animal care. This section covers animal welfare considerations, as well as how non-compliance is identified, reported, and followed up to ensure regulatory adherence. IACUC is mandated to evaluate any animal care and use concerns at the institution. Concerns are received from a number of sources. Sometimes they are self-reported by the PI and research staff or from comparative medicine staff. Or IACUC members may identify them in reviews, and some are received via USF's Ethics Point reporting system, which can be anonymous. The IACUC takes all reports very seriously, and there are procedures in place for handling allegations of concerns or non-compliance. As an IACUC member, you may be part of a subcommittee to investigate any potential concerns or reports of non-compliance. Non-compliance in animal research refers to any failure to follow applicable federal laws and regulations, institutional policies such as those established by the IACUC, or the requirements outlined in an approved IACUC protocol. This definition is intentionally broad and reflects the importance of maintaining consistent oversight and accountability in animal research. Non-compliance can range from relatively minor administrative issues, such as delayed paperwork or missed reporting deadlines, to more serious concerns, including conducting unapproved procedures or using inappropriate euthanasia methods. Issues that negatively affect animal welfare or compromise research integrity are of particular concern, as they may place institutional funding and accreditation at risk. Serious or repeated non-compliance can result in significant consequences. Failure to comply with USDA requirements may result in enforcement actions, including civil or criminal penalties and the suspension of animal research activities. Similarly, non-compliance with public health service policies may result in corrective actions up to and including termination of PHS funding for animal-involved projects. It is important to note that while purpose-bred mice and rats are not currently regulated species under the USDA, they remain fully covered under PHS policy and institutional IACUC oversight requirements. The IACUC has ongoing reporting responsibilities to the institutional official, or IO. These include regular reports such as the results of semi-annual inspections and program reviews, as well as notification of the annual reports submitted to external oversight agencies, including the Public Health Service through OLAW, the USDA, and AAA-LAC. In addition, the IACUC provides the IO with reports of its evaluations and recommendations. This includes summaries of non-compliance investigations when they are substantiated and determined to be reportable to PHS, USDA, or AAA-LAC. When the institutional official concurs with the IACUC's determination that a violation of federal regulations or a significant deficiency must be reported, which is the standard practice. The IACUC Administrative Office submits the required reports to the appropriate oversight agency on behalf of the IO. As the saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work. But in this setting, teamwork makes the research work. Effective collaboration between investigators, veterinary staff, and the IACUC is essential to ensure both high-quality science and strong animal welfare. Through coordination and teamwork with the three components of an animal care and use program, the animal care team, vets and technicians, the IACUC, members and admin support, and the research team, investigators and research staff. The program can become greater than the sum of its parts and provide the best in animal welfare while still supporting the research goals. An effective animal care and use program depends on coordination and teamwork among its three core components: the animal care team, which includes veterinarians and animal care technicians, the IACUC, including both committee members and administrative support, and the research team, made up of investigators and research staff. When these groups work collaboratively and communicate openly, the program becomes greater than the sum of its parts. This integrated approach ensures high standards of animal welfare, strong regulatory compliance, and meaningful scientific outcomes, allowing research goals to be achieved responsibly and ethically. A central responsibility of the IACUC is to determine that research and teaching activities involving animals are relevant to human or animal health, advance scientific knowledge, or provide a clear benefit to society. Institutions that receive public funding and support are accountable to the public and must conduct research within the ethical and legal limits established by society. The use of animals in research is a privilege, not a right. This privilege can be lost if legal, regulatory, or moral responsibilities are not met by investigators or the institution. IACUC oversight plays a critical role in safeguarding this privilege by ensuring that animal use is justified, humane, and compliant. For these reasons, the role of an IACUC member is exceptionally important, not only to the university, but also to the animals involved in research and to the public trust that supports the scientific enterprise. If you need to get a hold of us, we are here to help you.